Hello, my fellow trailblazers. I believe I might have just figured out the true identity of the Flame Reaver. Truthfully, I don't think HOYO-verse is trying that hard to hide this. And based on everything we've seen so far, here's what I've pieced together. So let's jump into what I believe could be the true identity of HSR's Flame Reaver. Starting us off with suspect numero uno, let's talk about Phainon and the Flame Reaver. See, what if they're actually two sides of the same person? Not metaphorically, literally. According to the lore, Hakuhatsu-ki, Honkai Star Rail's version of Kevin Kaslana, from Honkai Impact 3rd, was killed by Acheron, as stated by herself in the Penacony quest where she discusses her encounter with her version of Kevin with Welt.
I ended that man's life. Alone.
But here's the twist. What if in some weird, twisted fate, his soul ended up in Amphoreus' netherrealm, and because Polixia couldn't grant him death as she was dead already, his soul was reincarnated into the Phainon we know now. So what about the Flame Reaver? Well, I believe he's a future version of Phainon, since we know that Amphoreus has a lot of theming around time travel. He literally has the ability to summon past versions of himself that we see when he attacks with his clones, and he cuts through time itself after Tribby traps him in the past using her Century Gate, literally slicing into different eras. I believe he is traveling back in time to try and stop Era Nova from ever happening. Want to know something else about the Flame Reaver? He's made of memory shards. He is a walking memory. When Anaxa sticks his hand through his chesticee, you can see parts of Memoria split out from him. Even Circes herself calls him no ordinary human, making it pretty highly likely that the Flame Reaver was never a human to begin with. Now here's the kicker. Phainon literally calls himself the Dark Sword Master during the story.
Duo of gladiators whose names strike terror in all who hear them. The one, the only Dark Swordmaster, Phainon!
The same name many other characters define the Flame Reaver as. I'm sure many of you agree that Amphoreus has a lot of signs that it is all just a simulation. For those who don't agree or haven't noticed it themselves, let me explain. The very appearance of the black tide corruption that we can see around parts of Amphoreus is made of what looks like glitched textures, literal visual stutters. And I don't think this is just an unrelated artistic choice. It must be intentional hinting at a simulated reality. Now think about it. Amphoreus is completely isolated from the rest of the universe. It has its own belief system and its own laws of physics. The fact that time travel is even possible here should make it clear that something isn't right here. I shouldn't even need to mention the fact that the Flame Chase journey appears to be a process to repeatedly reboot the world and start again. Like it's trying to factory reset itself as a way to fix the errors and bugs it's experiencing. Now what about Noose? The Aeon of erudition. They seem to be heavily involved, and we still don't have an answer as to why yet. But if we look at what erudition is all about, we might get an idea. Erudition in Star Rail is often represented through science and technologies. Doesn't Amphoreus seem a hell of a lot like an advanced computer simulation made for research? And would it really be a stretch to imagine this world is more data than matter? There's also a strong chance Amphoreus' design was inspired by Herta's simulated universe. That might even explain why Lygus knows who Madame Herta is in the first place. And honestly, if you've played Honkai Impact 3rd, this whole setup feels eerily similar to the Elysian Realm, doesn't it? That was literally a simulation made by Elysia, a character who shares a lot of themes and appearances with Cyrene. So, what if Amphoreus is just another realm like that? A simulated world made by Cyrene, rebooting endlessly because it's been corrupted by the virus of the Black Plague. This brings us to the big question. Is the Flame Reaver actually the villain? Because everything we think we know about him comes from Phainon himself. He says the Reaver killed Cyrene, but we never see that happen. There's no true visual for this, only Phainon's word. Does Phainon already know who the Flame Reaver is and wants to clear any suspicion off him that he could have potentially killed Cyrene? And if Amphoreus is a simulation, that memory could also be corrupted. Perchance this memory wasn't even real to begin with, just a memory planted in his head to create motivation to face his true self. Or what if the Flame Reaver really did kill Cyrene, making the painful choices the younger Phainon couldn't make? Not out of malice, but to stop Phainon from chasing a false prophecy that destroys everything and forces him into an endless cycle of torment. And I know some of you may think that the Flame Reaver or Phainon is the Lord Ravager trapped on Amphoreus, but hear me out. My theory is that there are actually two Lord Ravagers. One of them possibly being Zephyro, a one-man army with a passion for violent destruction. Zephyro is obsessed with raw power and the beauty of things in the moment just as they are destroyed. This Lord Ravager has an extreme passion for doomsday scenarios, kinda what's happening in Amphoreus. Also to note, the name Zephyro is a combination of Zephyrus, the god of the west wind, a common term we hear in Amphoreus, and Pyro, which sounds like a hint to the Flame Reaver, but I don't think it actually is the same person. The other Lord Ravager that could be trapped on Amphoreus is known as the Sun Devourer, a name given by the survivors from the Ivana system. This Lord Ravager doesn't just kill worlds, it plunges them into darkness, then invades what's left. If I'm being honest, I'm leaning more towards Zephyro. Moving on to the second Lord Ravager, the one trying to free the trapped one. Some believe the Iron Tomb marked Amphoreus for destruction, which would make sense also, because the simulation may have become too advanced, which is exactly the type of target that Iron Tomb looks for when reaping destruction, civilizations that have advanced too far with technology. From what we've seen, Amphoreus seems like a pretty unadvanced planet unless you look at it from my perspective of it being a simulation. It would make a whole lot of sense for Iron Tomb to show interest in this planet. Then there's the chess player, a mysterious figure who might have summoned the Black Tide on purpose, to break the simulation, to free the trapped Lord Ravager inside. So, let's bring it full circle. If the Flame Reaver isn't the enemy, and if Amphoreus is a simulation, then what we're looking at is a prison, exactly how Lygus describes it, but not for the Lord Ravager present on the planet, instead made by Cyrene, which is a whole new topic to talk about. To endlessly torment Phainon until he breaks the cycle and redeems himself, becoming a true hero, not the hero he wanted to be. Now remember, this is all just a theory, and we'll all have to wait for the version 3.3 update to find out the real truth of the Flame Reaver. But for now, this is just what I believe in, and I'm curious what you guys think and what your theories are. Why don't you let me know in the comments below? With that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.